So last time we talked about the discovery phase, the initial phone consultations, the on-site consultation. So let's say the client is like good to go. They want to move forward. The client's going to sign a design proposal, right? And so that design proposal is going to be different for every client, kind of depending on what they want.
Yeah.
So what are the things that will influence the price of a design?
The complexity, right,
Mm-hmm.
of the design, whether it's simple or complex. Simple design, is that, you want me to discuss that?
Yeah, let's say what's a simple design, or actually a design that doesn't even like go to. Well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut that
Yeah.
out. Wait.
That's a good. Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
the
So yeah, let's say like simple design versus complex design, and how does that influence the design fee and how we proceed and all that.
okay. So let's start with a simple design. A simple design is something I would categorize like a patio, a
Mm-hmm.
seating wall, a fire pit, fireplace, a retaining wall that's under 4 feet, drainage, grading, sod, moving irrigation, a pergola.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all of those are a simple design. I'm trying to think of anything else that we have incorporated. A set of steps going up is, would be a simple design as long as they're not too high. Um, those would be simple, and the reason I say simple is because they don't require any architectural plans,
Mm-hmm.
and they also don't require engineering. So that really is just going into the topical in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But a complex design is when we get into the structural side of things, if we have a pavilion that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
because then we're diving into architectural and engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Or a retaining wall that's over 4 feet tall has to be engineered.
And then let's just talk about our design process because I think it's like a really standout feature of something that we do.
Okay.
How fun it is and how collaborative, and it is really the creative part of the whole process. So when we have already gotten some inspiration pictures, we're going to ask for more inspiration pictures. What's the process? What's the conversation like that we're having?
It's a part of what I always say, we hit the ground running, right? And we're really at a fast pace at this point because during the discovery phase, during the phone consultation, and during the on site consultation, we were able to get a ton of information and insight on what the client wants
Mm-hmm.
and their aesthetics, right?
Right.
So at this point, we're kind of diving in a lot deeper. Even though we've spent a lot of time already with this,
Mm-hmm.
there's still so many details to work out, right?
Absolutely.
Within the design, there's furniture, there's layout, there's how many feet do we have in between the dining table and the couch?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm struggling right now. I sent you an email last night
Right.
on we've got this. Oh my gosh, this beautiful swimming pool and pavilion that we're doing, but I'm struggling on the layout of the living room, and that's important,
I
right?
think that you've got a really good point because I don't know that a lot of other companies or designers really focus on asking the client, like, how are you going to use it? What's the kind of furniture you're going to see yourself putting into this space? And we want to build around that instead of asking the client to fit their life into a footprint that we've just arbitrarily created.
Right. Just hey, here's your box,
Right. You put whatever you can in there.
and you can figure out. No, we work backwards. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. That's a great way to put it. What is your lifestyle? What do you want to use it for? We'll design around that.
Yeah.
Those parameters, and within those parameters come specific measurements.
Exactly.
How
Yeah.
big does a pavilion need to be? Well, the customer said they wanted a dining room table,
Mm-hmm.
a TV area, and some hanging chairs. There's a certain size footprint that needs to fit that piece of the puzzle, right?
Right.
If it's smaller, it doesn't work. And if it's larger, they're spending too much money on square footage that they didn't need to spend to begin with.
Right.
So,
And we want to maximize their budget.
yes, maximize the space and the budget, but also keep it constrained so that they're not spending more money than they need to on that particular design.
Yep. I think that another thing that we do really well is how collaborative our process is, how much we go back and forth. You have a great line that you always say to people. It's like, we have 5 designers in the room.
Yes.
It's yourselves plus me and Elena and Ashley,
That's
and we're
right.
all working together. And even the crew, like, really has great ideas.
I was just going to mention that. This morning, I'm out on the job site, and actually, it was this week and last week. Jamie, Jeff, Sergio will come up with some amazing designs, right? So we've designed this. So the design process doesn't stop once we give the client the design.
Right.
I used to say 9 times out of 10. No, it's 10 times out of 10. We give a phenomenal design. It's beautiful, aesthetically pleasing, what the client wants. And all the feedback we get from the client has been, this far exceeds our last builder or anybody we've ever had.
Oh, yeah.
And that's so encouraging for us. But clients need to know that it doesn't stop there. The guys are designing and coming up with ideas that I didn't think of, you didn't think of, the client didn't think of, that takes the design and then it continues to morph into this masterpiece that it's not major, right? It's nothing like, the pool's actually going to go over here now.
Right.
But it is small pieces that make a massive impact on
Correct,
on the project.
The details matter, and
So really, I guess I go back to, I used to say we've got 5 designers. No, we've got 10 designers, in-house.
I like that.
Yeah. We've got a lot of designers, so
Yeah.
your project really gets.
And you guys
a
are
ton.
so good at, like, keeping up with, like, the latest trends, latest materials. They're always kind of keeping on track of, like, better ways to do things. I love that about them.
Yeah. Jamie in particular, and Jeff does this as well, and Sam does this as well. They are like me. We watch a lot of TikTok. And so in the construction field, once you start watching something, then it gives you, and you start following, it gives you more of that piece, like whether it's high-end carpentry, pavilions, pools, whatever. And we're able to get other design ideas and techniques from people around the world.
That's cool.
So the guys are always studying. I know it sounds funny to say, "Hey, I'm getting a lot. I'm working on TikTok," but it's the truth. It's absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a new age. It's a new time. It's a new era, and we get so much information and detail from TikTok, which is just insane. And I fought it forever to be on there. Anyway, I digress. I get off of topic. So you've got to keep me on.
Sorry.
Keep me on topic.
I like it. No, it's actually relevant. I think, we get inspiration from everywhere and anywhere. And we could just be walking down the street. You go to hotels sometimes that really inspire you. TikTok inspires. It can come from anywhere, but we're ready to implement it when it makes sense.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Okay, so stages of the design process. Okay. We're going to start with sketches. We do have a program that we use for it. It makes it really easy to create space plans that are accurate.
Yes, Portfolio Trace. A lot of people use Sketchpad, SketchUp.
Yep.
There's a couple others that are big. Portfolio Trace is something that we got on, and it's great because... So we start our concept drawings by that. So we've already got Pinterest board, we've got our ideas, we've got ideas from the client. From that, I basically take the impervious calculations, make sure that what we can build. Because sometimes it's like it doesn't matter because we got plenty of impervious to deal with and we can build whatever. Other times we have to stay within a certain square footage to pass and get a permit, right?
Right.
So we take the survey, we put it in the background of Portfolio Trace, and then we'll trace the house out and then start tracing our square footage and layout. So we'll do basic concept as doing layout.
Yep. So it's
topical.
Topical. It's a 2D, very flat, just understanding where each room's going to be, what kind of furniture is going to go in each room, how it integrates into the landscape of their whole backyard.
Yes. So the client's able to see that. We don't dive into like, hey, here's a 3D design. Right. No, this is a whole process. It takes a while. Honestly, I say a typical design, I guess, depends on the simple or complex or whatever. You're somewhere around at least a month from beginning to end because there's a lot of back and forth. This would be easy if the client was like, hey, just design it. We don't care. and do whatever. Then we could just design and not talk to the client and come in and build. That's not
What we
real.
do, yeah.
That's not real. So
So I like
sorry, I
this.
get off.
No, you're fine. I like this phase too because it allows us to then communicate with pictures some of our ideas. So we're giving them a space plan, but then we also want to describe some of the vision behind it. We're not going into the 3D rendering yet, so we have to kind of communicate through pictures.
Yes.
The only other thing I wanted to make sure that we brought up is that we do ask, like, both couple, if there's two people in a couple that are hiring us, that's not always the case, but
Yeah.
if it is, then we ask them to give us inspiration independently.
Yes.
So then we are
Independently.
really addressing.
It's important you guys do it independently because you guys will influence each other, right? So each couple influences, because you'll have different couples and one says, I really, really want this, and the other one's kind of bending and saying, that's fine, I don't really care about that, but whatever.
Yep.
So it's always nice to have independently, you give me a Pinterest board and you give me a Pinterest board. Don't talk to each other. Show us what you want, and then we bring that together, and it just creates something that you didn't imagine once you give it to us.
Yep.
Right.
I agree. I think that's a fun part. And then the other thing that I wanted to make sure that we touched on is that when we, even at this part of the design process where it's just topical, it's just a sketch, we are still very mindful of budget.
Yes.
Budget is a huge parameter that we have to work around. So
Yes.
impervious is one, budget is a big one also.
So I'm talking about budget now because we do budget on multiple.
Correct. So this is the first part, the first iteration where we're presenting something where budget is going to be a major consideration.
Yes.
It
Yes.
drives the design in many ways.
Before, I mean, literally, we are doing just a topical design. And I'm going to have, I need a wall here, I need a roof there. This is 732 square feet of patio space here, 330 up here. There's a wall over here, there's a pergola there. Before I step foot to another design, when we give this to the client, we say, hey, this right here is your budget. This is what it cost.
Right.
And
that's
they don't
important.
have any, we'll even with that, we'll give inspiration pictures,
Oh, yeah.
right? So like if we have a pergola, we'll use pergolas that we've done, or we'll do something inspirational on Google or Pinterest, right? To give them an idea of this is what you're looking at and this is the budget. So that's the first step,
Right.
right? Before we get anywhere into the weeds on this is giving them an idea of this is what you get. And then sometimes, you know, with those wants and that list that they have of we want all this in the design, we can say, now you got to go back and list us priority because something's going to have to be cut out because it doesn't match the budget.
Right. That's a good point. We already asked them to tell us their must-haves, and now we presented something, and now we're like, okay, this is over your budget. How do we cut back? And we can cut back on eliminating like the components that they want and also changing the materials. We have
Correct.
lots of cost-saving strategies that we present along the way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then the last thing is, of course, we've reviewed it, we've refined it, we agree on the space plan. Then we also want to move on to number 2 is conceptual boards. So here we're really, really bringing that vision to life. What's in your head, trying to present them with images that speak to kind of your artistic vision.
Yes.
Well, this
Yes.
well, this is like another stage where we're starting to tweak, right? This is before we get to the 3D rendering.
Yes.
We're trying to really get inside their head aesthetically now. We've given them the space plan. Now
Yeah.
we're trying to talk the artistic details, the stuff that make this a unique project, a CDG project, a
Yes.
Brian Perry project.
And that is a good point because you can throw out any design. Here's the problem with some, I'll say a problem. Here can be an issue, same thing as a problem.
It's okay. So
Here's the problem. Some designers that are not builders or builders that are not designers, it doesn't mesh well.
Good point. Yeah.
Right? So if you want a certain pavilion and I've got a landscape and I've got a hill behind, I've got to work out, being that I'm a designer, an architect, an engineer, a builder, all in one, right? I know the engineering that it takes to go into this wall.
Yep.
I know the cost of that wall. So I can right off the bat say, your roof can't be metal. We're already using the budget. We're going to have to do shingles on the roof, or the ceiling. We're going to have to reconfigure the design of that to make it fit the budget because we can't do this specific ebony wood or whatever it is, right? So we're able to really dive into a lot of detail at this beginning stage because we know how much it costs to do the engineering behind this wall or this feature or this pergola. We've been doing it for so long. That's something we'll talk about later in the episode. We'll do a separate reel on this, but I've been in construction since I was 13 years old.
That's impressive.
A very, very long
It's like
time.
child labor laws for that, I think, though.
I got paid. Dollar. Well, we'll talk about that later. It was cheap.
Okay, so if we've all agreed on the images that we're sending over, you know what? Let me back up a little bit because
Okay.
you actually said something that was relevant. I think what you were talking about before is like that's what's really like the missing piece for a lot of these remote designers. I don't want to say names, but like a lot of these online designers. I mean, they are creating some, decent, nice designs, but they aren't really taking into account the building process and incorporating that into the budget that the client has given to them. So they come to us sometimes to build and be like, this is unrealistic. Yeah.
An online designer can't give you a factual and realistic budget. It's just, unless it's just completely, it's just a patio and that's it.
Right, something very basic.
Yeah, but when you dive into a deeper design, an online designer, it's kind of a waste of time. We're dealing with that and having to redesign because their budget was blown because the way it was designed, it would have cost more money to design it that way. So to get the biggest impact for their budget, we had to go in a complete redesign of it.
Right.
So if you're doing a larger design, we really set ourselves completely apart from the majority of designers I know, design build companies. There's a few, don't get me wrong. There's a few in the triangle. There is, I don't even mind mentioning them. There's, who is it? Old North State is a great one. And there's some others that I don't know of. Current Outdoor Living is good. And there's others, but there's not that many of us that have the background, right, of architecture, engineering, design, and build, drainage, everything incorporated into one. Our typical design on a $200,000 job for 3D rendering is somewhere around $3,500 to $4,000. If you think that's a lot, go to another designer and get your design done. It's going to end up costing you more in the long run because our process is so much more detailed than the majority of design build contractors out there.
I agree. And I think something else that I don't know, I can't speak to whether other companies are doing it, is we offer the option to stage in a project. If the budget doesn't allow, but you know that ultimately you want to do more, we will create a design that takes those stages into consideration so that they can execute part of it, and we'll make sure that the other part is set up for execution at the point where they want to move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing is we don't like wasting money. If I can design something, and what I mean by wasting money, I mean wasting money if we can help it on things that you're not going to visibly see.
Right.
I love architecture. I love detail. I love things that just, when people walk into their backyard, I want a wow factor. I don't like doing the same things. Now, I will have components. See, we're going to use metal on different jobs.
You can't reinvent the wheel.
No, you can't. You can't change metal. We're going to use wood. We're going to use concrete, pavers, whatever it may be. I want to artistically change the form of that metal, the design of that metal, the focus of that lighting. And I don't want to spend money on grading or drainage if I don't have to. If there's a retaining wall that is 10 feet, that's going to be so much more expensive than us doing a retaining wall that's under 4 feet. And if I can get around the design of doing that, I'm going to do it because I want the client's money going toward the big bang.
Yeah, that's because you're an artist. So I don't blame you. So
What's next on our palette?
Okay, so
on this. Where are we, by the way? We're still on.
no, we're on number 2, conceptual boards.
Oh,
We
okay,
were talking
great,
about
great.
like going back with the ideas, with the pictures, because it's hard to communicate in words what's in your head.
Yep.
And even like sometimes looking for a picture is like really, really hard. If you have something in your head
I was doing
that you
that last
haven't
night.
seen it anywhere else,
Yep.
and you're really hoping you can get something close enough to communicate the
Yes.
vision before we get to the next stage.
That is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last night, I'm working on a design last night, and exactly. I've got this vision in my head of what I want, the design, the architecture, and I'm going through Pinterest and I can't find anything. So it's difficult. We're just going to have to wait till the 3D rendering to pull that together to show the
They
client.
have to trust you a little bit.
They do have to trust me a little bit.
But they came to you for this, so
Yes. They call me
usually-
Big Papa, so
Oh.
that's.
Don't let it get to your head. Okay, so we get to the point where we have gone through the sketch, we've gone through the conceptual boards, we've come to an agreement, everybody's happy, the budget's in place.
Yes.
Next phase, number 3, we finally move on to 3D rendering.
Yeah.
That's the funnest part.
That is the funnest part, right? Let me drag down a design. Right there is
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
that one's amazing. Yeah. Here, let me push it back up, and there we are again. How cool is that?
I like it.
I don't even know what design I showed right there.
You
but
showed the best one.
I showed the best one, and they just keep getting better. I don't know. Where were we? I always.
So you were talking about crappy versus like the final product is really.
Yes.
Yeah.
3D. Okay, thank you for keeping me focused, Elena. So yeah, it's kind of like the sketch phase still with the 3D rendering.
Right.
We kind of get the idea of the 3D. You start getting the elevation view of everything. We'll send that to the client. Say, hey, what do you think? And really on that, it's mostly because we've dialed it in a lot at this point. It's mostly getting the okay. Say, hey, do you like that? Let's just adjust this over there. The last one, we had a waterfall feature.
Yep.
That I wanted to put in on glass. So waterfall running down it, lights on it, all that. It didn't fit in the budget. So we ended up on the 3D rendering. We took that out, and then we did something that was within their means.
We do strive to make that 3D rendering an actual image of what they're going to get. So we don't want to like.
Oh yeah.
We don't want to start like making it fancier than what they're actually going to receive, right?
Right.
Like, you
Right.
want to create expectations for that. So
Yep,
okay,
yep.
so. We're at the point where we are ready. If 3D rendering comes in, client's excited, we're excited. You know, everybody's throwing a party because we're about to get this project underway.
So 3D. You're
3D.
talking about, yeah. So back up on that. So we do allow one revision to the 3D rendering.
Of a fully executed 3D rendering.
Yes, we try not to even get to that revision because we're wasting time at that point. We try to do all of our revisions up front. I would prefer that we don't do a revision once we get to the final beautiful 3D rendering, right?
They can't get in your head.
What's that?
They have to get that 3D rendering to actually see what's in your head.
Yes.
To then kind of like make fine-tuned adjustments
Yeah.
sometimes. Hopefully we don't. But
Hopefully we don't, but we do allow one revision. If it goes past that one revision, then we're getting into time, and we put that in the contract. You have to pay for multiple revisions. So if a client came back and said, I don't like this, well, we want to please the client, of course. We want them. At this point, we've never had that happen.
Nope.
We're doing so much homework and so much design work at the beginning that they're excited about the 2D, much less going into the 3D. So
We've never had a redesign.
that's a good point.
Never had a redesign. The next one on the docket is number 4, checking in with the HOA. So considerations for HOA submission. We do prepare all the documents. We look through what the requirements are, and we provide that to the client. The client does have to do the submission.
Yes.
But there are some things that could help along the way that we found, and one of them is neighbors.
Neighbors, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are friends with your neighbors. If you are enemies, then we need to discuss that. So that is a really good point. Before we ever have a consultation, you guys need to make sure you have a good relationship with your neighbors if you have an HOA. Because you have to have your neighbors sign off on what we design before the HOA will allow you to move forward.
Yeah, that can be a huge stumbling block.
If you have a neighbor that is just horrific, it doesn't mean that the HOA is not going to approve. The HOA are people too. So if you have a horrible neighbor that everybody knows, the HOA probably knows about that horrible neighbor.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to, but there's going to be hoops and things I'm sure you have to jump through. We've never had that happen.
No, but we've been afraid of it happening.
Yes, we've have.
We've sweat about it.
We do sweat about it.
We stay up at night sometimes.
Yeah. So be friends with your neighbors.
So we do provide everything that is a good service that we provide, making sure that this is turnkey for the clients.
Yes.
We get the HOA approval, and now we have a green light to just speed on ahead. Let's say we're not going to jump on this project immediately. We've finished a design, and this design, in terms of execution, we're still like more than 6 months out, which happens, right? That's how our process works. We sometimes create design far in advance.
We like to.
We would love to do that 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So.
It makes things so much easier. Way easier, and I don't want to dive too much into the weeds on this, but we're talking about ordering materials, getting everything organized, furniture, everything still is having delays right now. It sucks,
right.
But it is what it is. So if we can do it far out, the problem is we're in a situation where we've had clients that ended up taking a new job on the West Coast. And I love this design. So this design right here that I'm about to pull down was a soak pool, tight backyard, extremely unique. I'm going to show
Gorgeous.
A before picture of what her house looked like. And this one is what it was going to look like. Man, I hate that we lost out.
I can see little tears coming down.
I hate that we lost out on this design, but she moved. She got a great job opportunity. My whole point of that whole conversation is to say that it set us back to where we're not in the arena that I want to be in, meaning we're having to work longer hours right now to get this design permit HOA process done so that we can start our builds sooner than I would like.
Right. We want to be able to jump on something quickly as soon as we're done with one, but if the boxes aren't checked, then we're holding and nobody's making money. So
That's right. That's right. And your design is not being built.
Yep.
So